Hello, everyone. Welcome to the tail end of Week 2. We are at the Link to the Past Randomizer League Season 3. This is the Invitational, so everyone here is awesome at this game. This is actually the second game for these teams back-to-back, so if you missed the first one, I don't know what you're doing. You need to turn your butt around and go watch that one and come back. No, I'm kidding. Watch this one first, but definitely go back and watch that last one because it was fun. So we do have Frostbite3030 on one side and Pikapals on the other. I am Hammerbro in the booth, and I am joined by the only ninja who makes his own clothing, Spyweaver. How you doing today, man?
Still on that one, aren't you? I am doing well.
I'll tell you what, you give me another one and I'll stop using that one. Until then, I'm going to enjoy what I got.
I suppose the name kind of lends itself into it. Spoiler alert, though, we're gonna spoil the previous matchup for you. If you weren't here for it, mute your speakers for a quick second. Jet took the first match between himself and Swerve for Fendrana Drifters. That gives them 9 points this season in the league so far. We got Pikapals over here with CLW with 3 points, looking to pick up another W here for them and get a little bit of redemption for the previous matchup.
So normally I don't read too much into the hashes here, but when your hash starts with 2 green pendants, I don't know. Sahasrara, anyone?
2 green pendants followed by a bomb and then a hammer.
So hammer is in the first chest in Swamp. Got it.
No, you're right here, aren't you?
You don't know where I'm hiding. The internet's a wonderful tool.
This is true.
Although I'd probably have some weird echoing and feel a little cramped if we're being honest. Oh, vanilla green pendant. Okay, so I did see the vanilla green pendant in Eastern. I also saw a 5-6 at Desert. I think Hera was just a regular crystal, but I am not positive on that. Wow, how about that tier
my
1?
memory does serve. Wow. Yeah, I believe my memory does serve. That was a regular crystal, that was the word I'm searching for, up in Hera. As if the 8 bombs then too wasn't enough, we got 300 rupees in the front of the secret passage here.
All right, so any takers on Uncle here? Okay, just another 20, that's fine. I guess it had to become normal eventually. And just in time too, because we really didn't want to see anything on that ledge.
Now, did we? I mean, maybe we did.
I mean, it's one thing if we're playing a key sanity, because now that does make it different. You're searching for 2 more keys that could be anywhere. But as just an open seed, it doesn't really change a whole lot. You're just going to watch these guys blow through another dungeon, which I guess is fun, as we get a wonderful, absolutely required single arrow sitting in the mushroom spot there.
A little bit of sticks there in the forest, and then 20 bucks when we drop down to the back of the thieves' hideout down here. So forest not really being too fruitful in this seed.
Speaking of fruitful, how about some more 20s from that bush grab that, with the money in hand, Pikapals decides, maybe I'll grab the other one on South Shore.
Yeah, you got one in the Lost Woods, you got one in the South Shore. If you're running low and you get down there heading to do those checks before you get over to Zor, you may as well grab that. But, I mean, come on, odds on you're going to run into something here, right?
I mean, you say that, but especially for Frostbite here, if we're somewhat frugal with money back here, Bottle Vendor could be an issue. It's unlikely with all these chests, but it is a possibility.
I mean, if the chests are going to give you those kind of items, giving us a bombos and a hook shot, I don't think we're going to complain too much, are we?
Yeah, especially with that 20 sitting there too, we do have the 100 required, so all is well.
I think there's 55 or 60 rupees under pots in Kakariko, regardless if math doesn't fail me right now either.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's 40 between the well. Oh no, you're right, it is 50. Yeah, so we would have had enough either way. That's a good call. I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about the 20 here in the well. And that bottle's super nice. That means Sick Kid's going to be right along the way.
Very conveniently placed. Oh! I guess we got 100 in Kakariko. Never mind. My bad.
I wouldn't say no to a flute here coming up, just so we could make this a perfectly clean sweep. But being able to check out Sick Kid super early is pretty nice as well.
Man, I think you're just asking a little too much. I mean, have you seen any of these seeds so far this week?
I try not to. I start feeling bad for people.
You're not supposed to feel bad when you're watching or when you're sitting up in the booth. Come on.
Look, I've played enough seeds that I can respect the pain.
Yeah, I kind of can after this week too.
Ooh, Sick Kid having a pointy.
Getting right to the point there, grabbing our first sword from Sick Kid. Not too bad.
Making puns as always, staying sharp.
Yeah, I figured we were about 5 minutes in. We were due for the first one. I mean, not the best, but you know, do what you can.
It's okay. You drop 3 more and it'll roll off the tongue like butter.
Right? Oh, lordy.
Alright, so in the gamble of yes or no, Frostbite is hoping that there was exactly that sitting on the maze race. So all is well. Get to save and quit, and we're good.
Good old quarter of an item. Going back over then to Link's house to get 10 sticks. Are we? No, we're going south. He's not going to get that 300 in the back of by Uncle there.
Yeah, and that could end up being interesting. I don't know a whole lot about how Frostbite routes, so I'm not certain if the fake flipper to Zora play would be something that he would be likely to do given the money. But with 1-300 sitting on Uncle, it makes it a bit less likely that we're going to have those rupees required.
Yeah, we could still run across a 100 somewhere, a couple of 50s. But I mean, I guess the good thing to keep in mind though at this point is we still don't have a glove or a flipper yet, so technically Zora wouldn't be within logic, and without that Moon Pearl, more runners are also less likely to make that trip too.
That's a good point. If you're not sitting out here with either the boots to water walk or the Moon Pearl, you're not going to be able to get to that waterfall ferry. And keeping in mind that there are 4 or 5 more 300s in the game, so there's nothing preventing one from just, sitting right here. But it does make it a little bit less likely.
Say, watch us talking all this now, and we're going to find a whole bunch more items, like a couple 300s boots, or I guess in this case, a hammer sitting in Mini Moldorm Cave. Nice to meet you.
Well, I had to throw myself somewhere. I figured I'd at least have some company with the thief sitting right there.
Somebody's got to be keeping you company, don't they?
Yeah, and I wanted to make sure that I was in good health, hence the heart and a half in the area.
My question is, what are you just doing with half a heart? That's kind of spooky around Halloween time here.
That is a good point. It was more just lack of effort on my part. I was pretty half-hearted.
Hammer sus, everybody. Hammer sus!
As if we didn't already know that.
Frostbite making it to his home, I guess, Ice Rod Cave, and that is a flute all the way up there for your trip. That is, I guess, well worth it if you ask me.
Yep, not Ice Rod Cave in this instance, but ends up being Flute Cave, so sticking with the color palette.
Sticking with the blue, but I don't know, we'll see if they're if that puts them a little bit cold as ice here as to where they want to go next.
Dabba-dee, dabba-die.
That wasn't even the same song, man. Come on.
I know it wasn't, but your reference was silly, so I picked my own. And there's that 300 rupees that Frostbite could have probably used a little bit earlier, but, we're creeping up towards Zora money now. Creeping up a little farther. Yeah. And it looks like Frostbite's going to go ahead and knock out, at the very least, the front of Escape coming up here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that by any means. You got a sword, you got a hammer, you got a hook shot to check the stun prize on the way if you want. If you get lucky with a key, you might be able to make it to the back. Oh, this could be anywhere from 2 to all 6 items here.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Notwithstanding. Can't remember what we found in the back of Sank yet.
I want to say that was an item. I don't think it was anything useful, but I'm pretty sure it was an item.
I think the 10 arrows or something wants to stick. I don't know. It wasn't anything of consequence. But anyways, there's your key, so...
The hookshot also does make getting through the Dark Cross chest quite a bit easier, at least in my opinion, because you're able to hookshot to it and then just kind of pull a little down to a little left or right, depending on which side you're coming at it from, to be able to kind of find where you are a bit easier. So the hookshot does make that slightly easier, at least in my opinion. It does look like Pikapals, though, has taken that flute and is headed straight up the mountain. Not a bad choice with the hookshot and hammer. It'll be interesting to see if there's something here.
Yeah, it's got everything in hand that you need to essentially grab all that you can see except the ether tablet and what we're about to see on top of Spectacle Rock Cave here, which is just a piece of art, so not needing that either. So there's also another whole slew of checks up here you can make your way to as well.
Yep, 7 sitting in Paradox, 1 in Spiral Cave, another 2 sitting in Hera, then you'll be able to stare at 1 at the floating island. So, actually, depending on the way what Hera is and how the layout is, you may not get both items out of there because we do not have a fire source currently. Death Mountain might wish to change that, which we can see here in a moment, but as of right now, we are lacking either a fire rod or that lamp.
Yeah, to this moment, don't get too far ahead of yourself, because how many times have we done that one too? But fire source aside too, I don't think that'll stop either of these runners from completing Hera. Just like you said, it's a matter of whether or not they'll get that big chest or the big key if it's hiding the bottom. There's a powder for Pikapals.
And that does put another check in logic with that hammer already in hand.
Of course, after you've done literally everything else in the area first, though.
That's fair, but we do have the flute, so it's not too terrible to get back to. And there's a glove, which is nice. But then on the flip side, it also does technically put that Zora check that you were talking about earlier within logic.
Yep, and as if to agree with that, it also dropped a 300 in your lap right beside it. Now, do keep in mind, however, though, that the game doesn't really care about rupee logic, so it can give you a glove, but absolutely no rupee drops before then. It doesn't really care about rupee placements as far as whatever item it puts on Zora is.
Yeah, the two things that this game doesn't really care about is how many hearts it gives you in most situations, Spike Cave and a couple of other places aside, and how many rupees you get. Which that's the two places that this rando can really give you a hard time. Other than that, it's usually going to make sure that depending on what settings you have the stuff you need to get through it, either with suitable amounts of glitches or without. But yeah. Rupees can really give you a hard time sometimes.
Although I will say it has been a while since I've seen a seed where you've had the forced grind rupees in front of Ice Rod Cave because all you have left is Zora play.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, in most instances, you at least will have a glove. So you'll be able to go to the cave. Ooh. Okay, so we're not going to be getting that big key then, which means if there's something in the big chest, it is not going to be checked by either of our runners, most likely until pretty late. But yeah, as you were saying, usually you at least have the glove, so you can go ahead and grab the cave just east of Desert. And outside of that, most of our runners in most circumstances can do a Houlihan room, which if you're unfamiliar, it's a wonderful way to break the game where you drop down into a hole following some shenanigans, and you end up in a wonderful little room that has 225 rupees in bloopies. So that's a handy way to get just under half of what you'd need for Zora, so it usually doesn't end up being too bad.
Yeah, there's always ways around it seems. And speaking of breaking the game there, Pikapals is just demonstrating the Harapot glitch. Put yourself on the right pixel, bomb yourself towards that pot, and hookshot in hand, you can pull yourself into it. Thing to keep in mind is that Hera as a dungeon is technically firelocked with that big key in the basement.
Yes, and that's only really going to come in handy immediately to our runners' minds if Moldorm drops something right here. Because if Moldorm doesn't, and there ends up being an item on that big chest, not really going to help us because we don't know what the item in the big chest is. But if Moldorm gives us something interesting, like, I don't know, the compass to Hera, then we can keep in mind that compass is technically firelocked.
So that is Hera down. That is 14 minutes, about 15 seconds in. Pikapal's pulling out the first crystal of the seed. And do remember that does also leave an item back in Hera in the big chest for us. We'll see how long that ends up weighing on our runners' minds today.
Yeah, that's a good point. Speaking of items that you don't want weighing on your mind, looks like Pikapals is going to take a slow walk around a spiral cave. Or pump cave, as it's known if you have no boots. Basically, how pumping works is if you are moving in a leftward trajectory or in an upward trajectory, you can stand up against a wall right there and tap the button that puts you up against the wall. So if you're moving left in that instance, it would be upwards. And as Pikapals was moving upwards, he was tapping right. And what that does is it basically resets your movement counter, which will give you more 2-pixel movements as opposed to what the game would normally give you, which is 1 2-pixel movement and then 4 1-pixel movements, I believe. So it helps reset that. You move a little faster, and it's about the only way to save time if you're trying to go somewhere quickly.
However, that long walk through a spiral cave, despite pulling 3 blueberries, proves to not be that fruitful for Pikapals today.
That was a terrible pun, Spyweaver.
I mean, I work with what I got here.
Speaking of not fruitful, we had 25 rupees and 3 blueberries in the back of Escape, so we could have just left that stuff there too. Goodness. You know, we're starting to get to the point where our options are kind of running out.
We got the powder, we have Zora, we haven't seen Desert yet. All that would do is let us look at the ledge and give us another hermit hiding over there in the desert. And I don't believe anybody has been over to the Eastern Palace area yet either.
Yep, Green Pendant Eastern. So at the very least, we'll probably see someone head over to the Hospitalist Closet. But I'm sure our runners would rather not go into Eastern if they can help it.
And demonstrating that, Pikapals decides to go to Kakariko for the 1 lone item over here on Magic Bat instead of making their way over to the 3 in the back of Sahasrala's closet.
I don't really blame Pikapals, just because that 3 in Sahasrala's closet kind of comes with a commitment. If you're over there and you don't get anything in Sahasrala's closet, then you start thinking, I should probably go into Eastern because that's, again, the most dense area. And as we see flippers there, that actually unlocks quite a few checks. I don't dislike that item pickup because that's not only Zora, that's also Zora Ledge, the 2 items in the Waterfall Ferry, and Hobos. So that's 5 checks right there. That's not a bad place to go.
Definitely, that gives you a little bit more answer of what to do here. Of course, since we were still lacking the boots or the moon pearl, we really didn't have any way of water walking to get into the Waterfall Ferry checks, but now we can do that. And am I the only one that's kind of a little disappointed that it's a swimming Pikachu instead of a surfing Pikachu?
I mean, I can't think of something off the top of my head that we could use as a board. I guess if you had the book, you could makeshift a surfboard out of it, but I can't think of anything else that would be terribly useful. Unless Pikachu's smaller than I'm thinking and maybe a A Redarang or a Bloomerang might work.
Yeah, there you go. That might be able to work. Jumping out of Hobo, taking that flute back to the 8th spot a little bit quicker on land, making your way back to this little warp whirlpool instead of swimming all the way back down.
And as our checks start getting lower and lower here, keep in mind Pikapals has not done the front of escape, so that's also going to be weighing on their mind. As Nevermind, hello
Nevermind.
Dark World. As my co-com is fond of saying during our races, piece of candy.
I think you're the one that started that, weren't you?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. Oh, hello, Bo.
Speaking of sweet things,
I don't know that I call a Bo a sweet thing just because Green Pendant Eastern. I mean,
well, we haven't seen Pod yet.
It's another pendant. Don't worry.
Oh God, you just really want to be mean, don't you?
I'm just being rando. Okay, it's not about being mean.
I think Zora's showing a little bit more love there to her runners than you are so far.
It doesn't say a whole lot. I talk compassion, but in the end, I want them to suffer just as much as anyone else does.
Yeah, that is a fair point. It makes it for an interesting match to watch and interesting stuff for us to talk about while they're going over it.
That's fair. I also like stuff that opens up because then we get to, see how the runners decide to route things. Speaking of which, even with that Bow and Hammer, Pikapals is going to go ahead. It sounds like the name of a band, actually, Bow and Hammer. Anyways, Pikapals, please forgive me, I have ADHD, and on nights like tonight, it can just be bad. So just buckle your hands and feet inside the vehicle and yeah, just strap yourselves in and try and keep up. It's terrible. Anyways, rant aside, Pikapal's choosing to forego Pod at this exact moment and instead head over to the other Dark World portal. All right, so
there you go.
Yep, I saw the 5-6 on Ice Palace, and I want to say that Meyer was a pendant along with maybe Thieves Town, but I'm not certain on that.
To my recollection, Swamp and Meyer are the other two pendants. Ice Palace, the 5-6. Pod is a pendant. That actually makes me like this routing from Pikapals a little bit more. We can clear out Village of Outcasts, Thieves Town, make your way down the southern loop in the Dark World, and then make your way right up from there into Pod.
Yeah, and then at that point, you'll kind of have a better feel for the rest of it. If you don't really get anything else, then you can start doing okay, is Eastern going to be worth my clear at this point? Is that 3 items worth it, depending on what I have left and what I can check? Whereas if you end up finding some good stuff, like, our Fire Rod, or Submit even, or the Mirror, then that gives you quite a few more options. It makes it more likely you might end up skipping Eastern for the time being. So we'll see how it plays out.
I mean, I know it's handy and everything, but I kind of want to go out on a limb here and say that based on our layout, I'm not too sure the runners really want to see a mirror this seed.
That's fair. Or, well, we already have the flute, so that's going to just be an unfortunate circumstance of life. But you are right in that mirror is something they'd probably rather not take too much of a look at if they can help it. And not just because of Swamp, honestly. Mirror does make routing in a lot of circumstances easier as we pull a Quake out of the first chest in Thieves Town. But Mirror, especially if you get it later, can really heck you up with these single locations. Hype Caves ends up being a good call as we pull Boots out of here. And even if there's nothing else in here, which, spoiler alert, there's not, those Boots are going to make moving quite a bit more satisfying for Frostbite.
I say Boots alone, once you saw that, it didn't really matter to me. I automatically gave that an instant 8. How about you?
Yeah, I would hasten to agree. Maybe not if I were the person running.
Lord.
Like, I honestly, I didn't even think about that. Oh, it's bad when they start becoming accidental. Anyways, I think that if I were running this seed, not knowing what my opponent did, I would probably rate it a little lower, maybe a 5 or a 6, because there was nothing else in there. But knowing that that Pikapals is going to basically walk through the entirety of the Dark World, at least half of it, before getting over to Hype Cave, that's going to be a bit of an advantage.
Yeah, buckle up, folks. We're only 20 odd minutes on in here, and it's only going to get faster the longer we go.
It's like a roll of toilet paper.
Soft and pleasant?
No, the closer you get to the end, the faster it goes. I'm gonna get a DM from one of the SG admins. Please don't mention toilet paper in your comms. The one advantage
I think that was your crappiest one of the night so far.
That was bad. Just get out. The one thing that Pikapals may end up having as an advantage for pod routing, though, is if that mirror is somewhere along the way, routing pod's going to be a little bit easier for Pikapals than it is here for Frostbite, because as anyone who's played the vanilla game, or really any amount of rando can tell you, routing pod without a mirror is a pain.
It can be done. It's not fun, especially when the big key there is vanilla. That's just, I mean, come on. Why'd you make me go all the way up here? Really?
I mean, honestly, in my experience, whoa, nice Master Sword.
Okay.
In my experience, if the first 2 chests that you come across give keys, it's not too terrible, because then you can basically full clear the entirety of the front, not have to worry about, is there an item sitting there in that vanilla big key chest? Because sometimes that can give you problems. And holy cow, Thieves Town is just loaded. We had the cape sitting in there. The first chest was Quake. There's a red goo. I mean, is there anything else you'd like to throw at us?
Should we say fire rod just for good measure? Nope, another bottle.
I mean, I wouldn't say no to that. With the flute, that empty bottle's a nice thing, because you're always just a couple seconds away from pulling a quick refill.
That is true. That's sure if any of our runners make it to Pyramid Ferry. Their quick trip there away.
Well, Waterfall Ferry didn't give us jack squat, so I wasn't really holding out hope for the other one.
Yeah, fair point. Now over on Pikapals side, however, we do have ourselves a blind fight, the first of the evening, 3 phases, 3 hits per phase. Doesn't matter your weapon, doesn't matter your sword, and if you do it just right, so far how Pikapals has been showing us, this fight's the exact same every time, and right there you go, keeps it perfectly on script. That's going to be 26 minutes and 55 seconds on in. Pikapals grabbing their 2nd crystal of the evening.
Another interesting choice here, Frostbite has elected to not worry too much about the back of pod for now, and is going straight for the boss. That's a really gutsy call. I'm not going to lie, because you might have a fire source back there that would make this set of rooms easier. Now, given that's another way to do this room very well, smack everything with a hammer, and then just go ahead and blow it up. That counts as a fire-ish source, right?
I mean, I still to this day don't understand why Bombos of all things doesn't light torches.
That'd be one interesting way to get the torch glitch, though. Goodness gracious.
Hold on, freeze! Let me use this medallion quick, please. Thank you! Post Thieves Town clear, Pikapals doing exactly kind of what we postulated earlier, going the south route out of Village of Outcasts. I can imagine this route will take them right on over to Pod. I should be getting those boots momentarily as well, so won't be too far behind Frostbite with that pair of goodies.
Yeah, that's a good point. The interesting thing, though, is that this does, I don't want to say orphan, that's a bit too strong of a word, but Cave 45 hasn't been touched, and without, unless Stumpy drops a mirror here, it's not going to be for at least a little bit here. And the same thing for Bombo's tablet should we run across something silly like a book and a mirror.
Yeah, but in a perfect world, you'll get yourself your mitts and your mirror around the same time. And speaking of fire rod, oh my, that's a fire rod on Helmasaur over there on Frostbite side, taking him down, getting their second crystal of the evening as well.
And that's a really interesting place for that, because now I'm assuming Frostbite's going to go back in. Yeah, Frostbite's going to go back in, clear out the back of pod. But then they'll be able to head over to Village of Outcasts and knock out both of those crystals in one fell swoop.
And the interesting thing along those lines to kind of keep in mind as well is that fire rod is lamp locked.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we know we're not going to have the lamp in, for instance, the basement of Hera, because fire rod locked. Similarly, we shouldn't. Well, I guess we could still find it in Ice Palace because we did pull Bombos out a little bit earlier. But it won't be on the fire locked side of Mire and a couple more locations. It doesn't give us too much information, but it gives us a little bit.
I mean, who are we kidding? It's probably going to be in the Chain Chomp room or something in TR like it usually is, right?
Yeah, that's a fair point. It could also just be sitting up here on Catfish. Nice silvers on a harmless Hellway.
On the list of things I will not say no to.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, that's fair. Speaking of a list of things you wouldn't say no to, I'm sure our runner still wouldn't mind a Tempered Sword. It's not as big of a requirement as it would have been had those silvers been buried somewhere, but still, we still do like that Bacon Blade for making murdering a little more efficient.
I mean, it just cooks things so nicely, if you ask me.
Well, it's a shame we don't have the mirror, or else that would have been really efficient.
That's rude.
Yeah, so if Mushroom doesn't give us anything, did we just get catfished?
I would wholeheartedly agree with you there.
Except for then
we're
you'd
not
have
turning
to.
that in right away either. We're going to pod, it looks like, on Pikapals side.
I mean, not a bad call. You can full clear pod. Runners of this caliber don't really care too much about fire sources, so it's not like Pikapals sitting there going, man, I really want that lamp for pod. Pikapals probably couldn't care less, so you might as well knock it out. Yeah. You're going to have to do it anyways.
Yeah, that kind of lends itself to, I think, what some of us kind of dubbed tournament go mode, where technically you need the lamp, but if you don't have the lamp, who really cares? You don't really need it with how they have knowledge of their dark rooms. So it's an alternate or an optional item that's just for convenience at this point, even though there's some places it hard locks.
Exactly. And there are certain circumstances where you could absolutely need the lamp. For instance, if that fire rod was sitting in the basement of Hera, then yeah, we'd absolutely need that lamp. But in a regular seed, most runners of this caliber aren't really going to worry too much about it. Wouldn't say no to it for the Mire rooms. Wouldn't say no to it for Aga, if God forbid that's required. But pretty much everything else, our runners are just like, yeah, no lamp, no big deal.
Lamp? What's that? That's still in the game?
Don't say that in front of Vitorp. He might decide to do something silly for next year's Halloween festive. Yeah, everything's in the dark. Good luck. No, thank you.
That would kind of be an interesting mode.
No, Spy. No.
Frostbite giving us a look at something new over here. Looks like we're going to the back of Skullwoods right away. Makes sense. You have that fire rod in hand. Skullwoods is a crystal. You got to clear it regardless. If you do get lucky and pull an item off of Mothula, that's just one less item to look for in the front of Skullwoods. So definitely don't disagree with this play by any stretch of the imagination at all.
Yeah, plus Skullwoods tends to be annoying. There's usually one item in the front and one item in the back. So regardless of which way you're clearing it, you're just about full clearing the darn thing anyways.
Yeah, that is fair. When the fire rod's buried, both items are in the back. When the fire rod's early, it's 1 and 1, usually.
I don't know if I would call this an early fire rod or a late fire rod. I feel like it's earlier than late, but I don't know. I feel like it's somewhat middling.
Midlife crisis fire rod? Nothing.
No, I'm just kind of burnt out of your puns.
At least I got you smoldering over there.
No, that is not what I said. You clearly misinterpreted my words. Speaking of rods, though, I hope this doesn't devolve into our favorite rando thing, which is an ice rod hunt, because we do need that today.
Okay, now that's just cold, man. Come on.
You know, chat should thank me for not breaking out into song, because I very nearly did, and that would have been just a terrible thing for all of you.
Speaking of which, at 35 minutes and 22 seconds on in, over on the left side for Frostbite3030, that is crystal number 3 as Mothula melts right in front of his face.
Yeah, Frostbite, like any good programmer, knows how to squash a bug.
And then the not so fun check of Bridge Chest here in Skullwoods without the mirror. At least those spikes will still do 1 heart of damage regardless.
Speaking of hearts, there is our first item of the dungeon. And it looks like Frostbite is going to go ahead and just elect for the walk back. Not a bad idea, honestly.
Yeah, 9 hearts in hand. I mean, at this point, it's a wash either way. Take your death orb, take your walk out. Yeah.
Pikapals electing to go ahead and take the death out instead. I think that was intentional. I really hope that was intentional.
Yep, I believe so. If I didn't miscount, I think I saw both checks in the dark maze there for Pikapals. So there should be a dash over to the right and then to the back to grab that fire rod.
Yep. And speaking of which, Frostbite is still trying to find the second item here.
What an interesting logic circle would it be if we found the lamp here in Skullwoods?
I mean, all things considered, that is by no means like a bad required double dip.
No.
But it's still a required double dip. And I'm sure Frostbite, being able to keep up with the logic, would just roll his eyes upon seeing it. Nope, never mind, $50 and we're out. Don't even have to use the big key.
Nope, don't need to see some bomb jump shenanigans or anything. That's the second item. We are out. What do we do now? I believe this is going to be a check of the bumper ledge. And then if you're Frostbite, where do you go from here?
Well, I would imagine you go ahead and take out Thieves Town, because he has not done that yet. But, yep, full heart there, so we're not going to be grabbing that anytime soon, or ever. But yeah, Thieves Town is going to be the next big thing. And then at that point, I don't know, it's kind of interesting because, so for Frostbite, he's only sitting on 1 check, or 2 checks, I should say, south of Village of Outcasts, one of them being the dig game, the other one being Stumpy. He's probably going to go ahead and finish that out just to go ahead and get everything that's not mirror and mitts locked done. But outside of that, there's not really a whole lot of great places left.
Based on what we've seen, I have a theory.
That green pendant's actually going to be required.
Either that, or we do have that mushroom over on Pikapals' side.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've been trying to ignore that one just because that's... Well, no. But, like, if it ends up being the mushroom, that's really, really unfortunate for Frostbite. And I do like competitive seeds, you know? Because, like, how long is it going to take Frostbite to get back to Catfish at this point? It's going to be a while.
Yeah, that is fair.
Like,
I believe, since we do have a fire source in hand now, too, albeit technically still out of logic, we can go all the way back up to the Hera Big Chest, and then if we wanted to get spicy with that cape, we could go down to Spike Cave.
Yeah, that's fair. That is 2 more checks, but I feel like Frostbite's going to do Catfish first. Just if I had to take a gander, Catfish is going to get knocked out first. Because obviously Frostbite has no idea that the mushroom's on Catfish, so Catfish is just like, go to your next place. And yeah, with Frostbite running through Thieves Town here, and Pikapals forgetting that you do not, in fact, have the mitt, so you have to go the long way around, my friend. Perfect time to remind everyone, go ahead and follow these runners. These guys are great. They are flying through this seed and giving us plenty to talk about while doing it. So give them a follow. They definitely deserve it.
Yep, this is the Invitational League for Link to the Past Randomizer Season 3. And if I would be so bold to say as there is going to be a whole lot of probably evenly matched matchups throughout this throughout the whole entire season, to the point where flip a coin and you're probably going to be just as right as if you had guessed who would win any of these matches we got coming up.
Yeah, that's fair. And this is actually probably the most vanilla race we have. Next week, if you guys are unfamiliar, we're going to go ahead and do something a little more spicy. It's going to be a standard start, so we will start with having to do escape as opposed to open like these runners have this game. But on top of that, we get to go ahead and start with the boots and a sword free of charge. So it's going to be a bit of a quicker seed, a bit more streamlined, less walking around, more going fast with a pointy bit sticking out the front. And our runners are going to just love eating that up. And then following it, we actually have a crazy little concoction for week 4. That's going to be a key sanity. But the pilot, which is another person from your team, gets the spoiler log at the exact same moment as you start the race. So no prep time, but you'll have one runner running through a key sanity with as low percent as they physically can, while the other person on the team tells them where everything is, and that is bound to be interesting as well.
Plenty more on the schedule for the remaining weeks. Lots of spicy modes to check out as well. Scheduled down in the chat if you wanted to take a look at that and peep any other potential weeks that you might like to take a look at and watch some matches from. So we have synced boss fights, one Mothula, the other blind. Our Mothula already dead. That is 42 minutes, 18 seconds on in. Pikapals pulling crystal number 4.
Yep, just a couple of seconds ahead of Frostbite here for crystal number 4. But to be fair, you know, if you do Mothula well, it's going to be faster than blind. There's not really a whole lot you can do to speed that fight up other than keep it on script.
That is true. Frostbite getting a little off script at the end, but no big deal. Still takes blind down without too much of a hassle. That is Frostbite's 4th crystal of the evening as well, evening us up back to 4 crystals apiece.
Pikapals almost, maybe? Oh. Did Pikapals get the second item out, or are they just going, not today? I didn't see them do the front first.
I can't remember if Pika was in the front or not right away. But either way, deciding to S and Q out, and where are we headed?
Bonk Rocks makes sense, since Pikapals got the boots a little bit later. Just a big 20 in here, if I remember correctly. Yay!
I mean, to be fair, you could have forgotten and still guessed big 20 since there's literally a plethora of them in the item pool.
Yeah, I want to say there's 28, which is close to the amount of hearts that we have, I believe, sitting at 24. So big 20 being the most likely item to come across, with a piece of heart being just behind that. As we see one of each. And yeah, chat and our tracker reminding us that yes, Pikapals did in fact grab that second item, so that was not an orphaning.
Speaking of which, as well as we get a little bit of an overlap here, big shout outs to our tracker of the evening, Bandman25, doing all the heavy lifting behind the scenes, keeping us on track, making sure we know what we're talking about and making our job a little bit easier.
Yep, and this insane lovely person has decided to do 2 of these in a row, as he actually did the race just before this one. So major shout outs there. So it does look like Frostbite is deciding to leave Eastern Palace alone. Have they even checked Sahasrala's closet? I don't think we've gotten a Sahas closet check. And we are getting Have we?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So this man has decided that he's going to go ahead and leave alone those 6 items in the Eastern area here, and is going to go ahead and grab 1. And there's a big 20.
Meanwhile, on Pikapal's side, in the back of Saha's closet, look out, that is the Titan's mitts. Oh boy.
So that's a situation where, from our side, it's a good grab. Because Pikapals is a bit ahead, well, not much, but slightly ahead of Frostbite. But for both of these runners, it's probably going to feel like a bad find. It's going to feel even worse for Frostbite, who is going into Eastern first. But at that point, when you find mitts in what is technically a Sphere 1 location, being something you can check right off the bat, it does not feel good, even if you beat your opponent in finding it by a good 5 minutes.
Yeah, having a Sphere 1 location give you an item like that 45 minutes into the seed never feels good. And you all of a sudden feel 15 minutes behind, even if you're not.
Especially because of how long we had to wait to find that other glove. So they could have theoretically had Dark World access way faster than they did.
Yeah, that is true. Meanwhile, looks like Frostbite, however, is going to do this in reverse order. I would imagine this is going to be an Eastern Palace clear, and then turning in the green pendant at the same time as checking Sahasrala.
Yeah, which at this point, I mean, right now that looks like a bad play because we're delaying the mitts. But if green pendant has something, that is enormous.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, we already know what item is sitting there in the back of Sahasrala's closet. But, you know, as from a runner standpoint, when you don't, I mean, this is entirely a well thought out, actually well-rounded play on Frostbite's side, if you ask me.
Yeah, I don't love it just because of the 3 items that are sitting in Sahasrala's closet that I could get way faster than clearing Eastern. But I can see the logic in both, especially if you kind of have a feeling, like as a runner, sometimes you're running through a seed and you go, this seed's just going to make me clear everything, isn't it? And especially if Frostbite's getting that feeling, then if you feel like you're going to have to clear Eastern, I mean, you might as well just clear it.
Pikapals gave us our first look up there at Turtle Rock. It is Quake to get in. We have both required medallions. We are now in Hookshot Cave. So far, a whole lot of nothing. And yeah, still a whole lot of nothing there in Hookshot Cave. The mountain not really giving us too much to look at here. We got 2 more checks left to go, however.
I was going to say, don't jump on it yet. We still have Super Bunny that could drop us a Cane of Samaria or something equally silly. I do tend to argue that Dark Death Mountain usually has something pertaining to Turtle Rock here. It was not the case this go-around, although I guess technically if Hera Big Chest has the Cane of Samaria, ooh, that'd be an ugly spot for that.
Oh, well, I mean, we do have Bombos, Myers, Bombos, we've just seen, or at least I guess I've seen way too many seeds recently where good old Cane of Samaria hiding in a French vanilla location inside Misery Mire.
Yes, you have. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, Spy is my teammate over on the other portion of this league. And yeah, during the co-op race, which was week 1, he located both the Cane of Samaria and the Mirror in Misery Mire. So fun seed all around. Mire has something until it doesn't, which is just awful, honestly.
To be fair, doesn't everything? And what a fight there on Frostbite side. That was a really, really well done strat there on Armos Knights, pulling down the green pendant in literally a matter of seconds.
Yeah, no kidding. Silvers makes an absolute joke of several bosses. The first boss in the game, especially, Armos goes down to 6 arrows, and yeah, they did not take long to be unleashed from that bow. Alright, so moment of truth. Is Sahas really giving us something other than mitts today? Oh! Oh no! Oh no! Oh, that is terrible.
Oh my.
And all of a sudden, Frostbite has a huge advantage. Rando is gonna rando. Oh my goodness.
Ouch. And now combine that with finding the mitts right after that in the back of Sahashilo's closet. You go from all of a sudden feeling behind where, you know, if you would have just checked the back right away to, okay, now I think I feel like I'm, I don't know, 15 minutes ahead maybe? I don't know. Oh,
hello,
wow.
Lance.
Speaking of rude, oh my.
I don't know if you're feeling 15 minutes ahead, especially going up against someone like Pikapals, but you're definitely not feeling 15 minutes behind anymore. There is at least that.
Either way, it's got to feel really good. You got to feel like you're in kind of a good position at that point, pulling Ice Rod off of the green pendant.
Oh man, and that is a redemption right there from Frostbite's side. Obviously, Frostbite having no idea that they basically grabbed the mitts at the exact same time as Pikapals, give or take a minute or two. But that feels like redemption, where you were late on the mitts, excuse me, and that felt terrible. But then, you know, bam, Ice Rod. Although from Frostbite's side, it was Ice Rod first, so it was the great feeling of, oh look, Ice Rod, and then like to kind of follow it.
So it all just kind of depends on what those mitts actually lead us here to today. If you know, if memory serves here, just kind of quickly glancing over things, we are a cane and then either a book or a mirror away from actually being in go mode already.
Yep, and with Pikapals running through here and showing us that so far, Ice Palace has nothing. Other than that lamp.
Yeah, that is a Bombos locked lamp locking a fire rod.
Yeah, that would have been the logic. Is come in here, or go grab Bombos from wherever the heck it was. I couldn't even tell you what it was at this point.
It was Blind's hut, I believe.
Okay, so super early.
Yeah.
And actually, if the runners had grabbed the mitts out of Sahasrala's closet, they could have done Ice Palace really, really early, come to think.
It could have legitimately been their first crystal completed. Because Hammer was sitting there in Mini Moldorm Cave too, so...
I don't know if that's in logic, though, because I don't remember where the flippers were. All right. I'm so used to seeing Icebreaker that I'm sitting here like, Pikapals, why are you going back? It's like, no, he didn't have the cane. I'm trying to remember where the flippers were off the top of my head. That's the only reason that I'm sitting here unsure if that would have been the first crystal. But yes.
Flippers were pretty early locking the Moon Pearl in Waterfall Cave.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, interesting. If you're 100% following the logic, interesting thing the seed wanted you to do.
Yeah, and we still don't know if that mushroom has something. And if it does, then this could be a situation of, okay, which runner does the thing that the other runner did first? Is Frostbite going to go check Catfish, or is Pikapals going to go ahead and take out that green pen?
You know, if I was a bet man, I would say the green pendant would show up on Pikapal's side before Frostbite makes their way all the way up to Catfish, but we do not know.
That is fair. It also kind of depends on what we run across, if we're being perfectly honest, because that'll determine like where the seed kind of throws them. I also don't know off the top of my head what our 5, 6. Yeah, so if we can get access into Desert soon for Frostbite, then that would open up Pyramid Fairy, which would then make Catfish viable again. But outside of that, yeah, that Catfish is just way in the corner.
Yeah, it all just depends on when or if we find the mirror and or book to get access into Desert. Desert being the other 5, 6 crystal of which we do not have access to quite yet.
All right, so enough about the next step. What do we have left here that could give us progression? Obviously, that mushroom that we've been talking on and off about for the last 10 minutes is a possibility. What else do we have?
We have a cane that could direct us to Misery Mire, or if you're unfortunate, Pikapals up into TR without the ice rod.
I completely missed that cane grab. So that cane grab is interesting because, yeah, like you said, it basically gives us 2 things.
Right there on Frostbite's side, which, you know, I'll pause you for a moment too, because it's becoming all too common that we're seeing that Cane of Samaria inside of Ice Palace just kind of mocking you, saying, hey, you got some fancy, you know, glitches to fix this dungeon, I hear. Well, yeah, no, you don't.
That is more or less the case. And this is really interesting because that almost guarantees that Pikapals is going to be double dipping Turtle Rock.
And speaking of Pikapals, just a couple moments ago, that was a cold stare kill giving Pikapals their 5th crystal of the evening, and almost as if you called it play for play, look where Pikapals is unfortunately heading to right now.
I mean, look, if there's one thing I've learned about this version, it's if you can go into TR, just go into TR. There's something there. There's always something there. Like, even if in this situation, obviously, we know Ice Rod's not going to be sitting in Turtle Rock, it wouldn't surprise me in the least to find some sort of progression there. Now, is it going to be good progression, or is it going to be something that leads Pikapals aside to do other stuff? No way of knowing at this point, but I would be shocked if there was absolutely nothing in Turtle Rock. That is not very common in this version. So Pikapals making a smart play, but not the right one for the seed.
Yeah, it's a great play. Don't misconstrue things at any corner here. It is a great play. There are plenty of checks in Turtle Rock. There's 5 unique quote unquote items. I mean, plenty of times we've seen the ice rod sitting in here. It's a great play. The only thing that just devalues it is we already know the ice rod is sitting on green pendant. And speaking of which, as well, over on Frostbite side, 57 minutes and about 44 seconds on in. That is a cold stare melted. That is crystal number 5. And Frostbite will making their way right on up to Turtle Rock as well. The only difference being they do, in fact, have that ice rod and be able to completely clear this out and get their crystal from Trinex.
Yeah, and this showing you here that you really just go into TR. You do. Both runners doing it under different circumstances. Pikapals has not turned in the mushroom yet. Frostbite has a couple things they haven't done yet, but you can go into TR, especially because it's a crystal. But even if it wasn't, you can go into TR, you kind of just go do it.
Most definitely.
This
so
is
what are we gonna find here? What would possibly be the one piece of progression TR is gonna drop in our laps today?
Shovel.
Come on, man.
No, because Meyer's gonna have the mirror and the book.
Maybe, but just plain rude.
I don't care which one of them, but I want one of them to be in the fire in the cutscene chest, and the other one to be on video. So you can take your pick which one you want to go do, but you're gonna have to do one of them.
All right.
Sad part is
about it here.
Depending on where that big key is, Vidi might be faster.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, that's just thinking ahead to me being a terrible human being and wishing ill on our poor runners. They are flying through Turtle Rock. Actually, an interesting thing here, and honestly, really lucky that we might not like that the mirror is going to be go mode for us, is that we don't currently have access to Mimic Cave, and there could be something there. But even if there were, we need the mirror to get it, so no big deal. And, you know, like you said, our runners tried to avoid finding the mirror, and here we are potentially needing mirror for go mode, maybe not even needing the mirror, so we don't have to worry about Swamp Palace today. Likewise, won't have to worry about the pedestal.
Yeah, the whole change of circumstances here. If you're Frostbite now at this side, you really don't care. You would not mind seeing that mirror at all. You want to see, of course, because you know you need that mirror or that book, one or the other, for your go mode, so you can get in a desert. You know, so that mirror, the sting is basically gone if you find it. If you're Pikapals on the other side, the worst thing at this point you could find would be that mirror, because then that almost guarantees that you're going to Swamp instead of Eastern.
Yeah, that's fair. So if you're Pikapals, you really want there to be absolutely nothing here. Like, maybe something silly like a shovel, but nothing here. Honestly, the book wouldn't be terrible, because all the book really gives you is Ether Tablet, and that's right up here too. So that's not really a big deal. You just do Ether Tablet and then probably Spike Cave, which is 2 more checks, takes a little more time, but we're not talking about severe routing insanity that would happen if you end up, you know, unlocking that mirror. And then, like you said, Swamp is available, and Checkerboard Cave's available, and Graveyard Ledge is available. That's not fun. Pikapals,
45.
you know, we could also have 45's the other one. We could also have a Smith Chain for our go mode.
Oh yeah.
That's something that we haven't really thought about, because, you know, the myths were just late enough that Smith Chain wasn't done. So that's 3 items that could have something. And without the mirror, that Smith Chain's going to be a pain in the butt to check. But, and that's
best of a worst
mode.
case scenario. Best of a worst case scenario if you're Pikapals there. That's the book that'll drive you right on over to Desert right away, I would imagine. And then I could almost see Pika finishing out Desert and then going and grabbing that big bomb and routing that big bomb back towards perhaps towards Eastern Palace afterwards.
I feel like you do Catfish first, though, and Catfish is going to give you that mushroom, and then you're going to go check that. Whereas for Frostbite, where one man's trash is another man's treasure, Frostbite's going to be in go mode in that last chest.
That is true. So we're a few short moments away. The key defining play of this seed so far showing out to be that, you know, with lack of progression in hand, Frostbite decided to go clear out Green Pendant Eastern Palace before even making a trip to Sahashala, turning in that Green Pendant, finding the Ice Rod, and going right in the back and grabbing those mitts.
Yeah, and Pikapals here is just flying through desert. I don't think we've seen anything of importance yet. Hopefully it stays that way. For Pikapal's sake, we don't want to see a mirror. We don't want to see a shovel. We don't want to see anything that could divert them away from the play that's going to slowly become more glaring as more things get kind of picked up and done. And that is Eastern Palace.
The other question, though, is if you're Pikapals after this and you find nothing here in desert, you can clear mire. Do you go ahead and clear mire?
I don't know how. So different people have different ways of routing, obviously. And some people are more prone to changing their routing based upon the version. So I don't know if Pikapals has played this version a bunch and has come to the realization that several of us have, that mire generally has something. If Pikapals has come to that generalization, then probably going to go into mire. If Pikapals has not, then Eastern takes first precedent, obviously. There's 4 items there, including the green pendant. It's going to be no longer of a clear. I want to say Eastern's probably a little faster than mire, depending on obviously where those items are. But overall, you're looking at 4 items versus 2 items for what would roughly be the same amount of time. Eastern sounds like the better play. But if you happen to think that mire might have something, then yeah, this could definitely be a play here for Pikapals. And that would obviously just push him farther off the track that he needs to be on.
And while we were kind of postulating that a little bit, Frostbite over there on the left side of your screen for Fendrana Drifters, pulling that book out of the bottom of Laser Bridge. That was approximately 1 hour and 2 minutes on in. That is go mode for Frostbite3030. And then a few quick minutes later, 1 hour, 6 minutes on in, we getting red mail as well as crystal number 6.
And that was a really nice fight. Without half magic and without a tempered sword, Trinex can be a pain in the butt, but Frostbite doing pretty well. Taking a couple hits, but keeping enough health that everything's okay. Has enough magic that things never really got scary there, and doing well. Meanwhile, Pikapals grabs their 6th crystal, but it is not the one that we're concerned about at this point. Pikapals needs to go grab that green pendant.
Yep, taking down Landmolas for Pikapal's 6th crystal as well. We're evened up 6 crystals to 6 crystals. However, Pikapals is on the hunt for that ice rod that we know is sitting on the green pendant in Eastern Palace. It's just comes down to a question of how soon does Pikapals make that play on over there. And meanwhile, Frostbite is in go mode.
Yeah, and at this point, I hate to say it because I enjoy competitive races, but this is Frostbite's race to lose. Even if Pikapals immediately goes over to Eastern, which it looks like, quite predictably, we're going to get a big bomb check first. Even if Pikapals goes immediately over to Eastern, it is still quite a bit of a lead to try and catch up from. And since that's not happening, every second here Pikapals spends checking something else is a second that's just flat out wasted because, well, it's not green pendant and it's not ice rod.
Yep, Frostbite is essentially a entire Turtle Rock clear plus whatever Pikapals ends up doing until he gets his way back to Turtle Rock ahead. You know, and I will also mention again, I mean, by no means was going into Turtle Rock when Pikapals did a bad play at all. It was a perfectly fine play, just this seed unfortunately did not want to put the ice rod in Turtle Rock.
Honestly, the big play here was the fact that Frostbite did Eastern first. Because...
Yep.
And I'll definitely ask Frostbite this in the interview if I can manage to remember that long. I feel like if Frostbite grabs those mitts, you don't turn your butt around and go into Eastern at that point.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. You get those mitts, that opens up so much, other spots in the world. Like you said, we haven't seen the Smith Chain, but it opens all that up. Opened up Dark Death Mountain, opened up Ice Palace, King's Tomb. I mean, a plethora of other checks. After grabbing those, the chances that you turn right around and go to Eastern, aren't nearly as big as if they would have been if there was absolutely nothing in the back of Sahashila's closet. And speaking of which, Pikapals making the play over to Eastern Palace here now. This is definitely what Pika needs to do.
Yeah, and all things considered, this is not even a bad play by the numbers. The Smith chain does have 3 items on it, but without the mirror, that's going to be a pain in the butt to get to. You do have,
and it's devalued not being able to get to, say, 45 or even Bombo's tablet too at the same time.
Exactly, and then having to go Dark World, pick up the Smith, and then not being able to transition Light World over. Exactly. So those 3 checks would take a while. Pikapals also does have that mushroom, which I am kind of surprised they haven't turned in at this point, but it could be a situation of I just don't want to, or Pikapals has forgotten they had the mushroom. Either way, that would be a quicker check in terms of just sheer amount of checks versus time, but that's also only a single check. And then, I mean, really, we don't have a whole lot else. So this was going to come sooner rather than later, especially because the seed was fortunate enough to probably hide the mirror in GT at this point, just by the numbers. But still, it's as Frostbite grabs their 7th crystal, it is a commanding lead. And yeah, we do have a game that we like to play. Spy, if you want to give us the details.
All right, with that being Frostbite3030 7th crystal, we like kind of guessing where that big key will be hiding up in Ganon's Tower. 1 through 22 different locations that big key could be hiding. Get your guesses in chat, because as soon as Frostbite enters Ganon's Tower, we will be closing the game. You do have a little bit of an extended time here since it's not the usual run from TR over to Ganon's Tower. It's a little bit of a longer trek. That all being said, Hammer, where are you feeling that big key at today?
At this point, I'm kind of torn. I usually try to go for a somewhat later one just because I like to see our runners fly through Ganon's Tower. It is a theoretically difficult dungeon that they tend to not make it so, and it fascinates me. But on the flip side, I kind of do want Pikapals to be out of their misery. Although that's not really going to matter, I don't think, because Pikapals is going to be grabbing that Ice Rod somewhat soon. So I think I'm going to go ahead and be nice today, and I'm going to say 21. How about you, Spy?
Nice. What? Wow, you and I have a different definition of nice there, man. Come on.
My definition of nice can be summed up in 3 words: not tile room.
Wow. Well, I'm gonna throw out my usual number of 14. If you've been around, that's usually what I figure on guessing. Usually ends up being either Bob's chest or some other variation thereof, depending on the routing taken. And speaking of which, routing taken. Yeah, and speaking of routing taken here, Frostbite making a few other stops just to probably see if we find another sword on the way, but Master Sword and Silver's in hand. I mean, Ganon fully completable and well within their reach at this point. It's just a matter of, do I really want to spin Ganon or do I want to slash Ganon? And of course, as those 7 crystals fly up over Frostbite's side, we have just a few short moments to get your last guesses on in chat. So if you haven't got it in yet, hurry up and get your numbers in. As soon as you enter that door, the guesses will close. And meanwhile, on the right side, Pikapals taking down Armos Knights for their green pendant.
Frostbite hoping to get a sword here, and the seed reminding him that he needs to temper his expectations. Kappa.
That one's about as smooth as butter there, bud.
Not yet. We're going to have to find 2 swords for that one. I don't think we're going to get that today. Meanwhile, Pikapals is in go mode with that wonderful Ice Rod sitting on Hospital's closet, probably wishing he paid a little more attention to the hash, but most people aren't as superstitious as I am, so.
I mean, you did kind of call that, didn't you?
I don't know what you're talking about. Don't put that on me.
I am totally blaming you on that one now that you mention it.
Nope.
So Editor decided to be a little cold.
Editor purged the tapes.
Delete.
See, this is the trick to being a witch. You have to be a witch. Just
7.
Wow. All right, lucky number 7. And without a mirror, Frostbite has to, just go ahead and bonk on back. That is kind of an interesting set of routing here. With 4 keys, we won't have to worry about GT big keys, which was nice because if the early parts of GT had been frugal with keys, Frostbite might be might have a bit of a decision to make. But as it was, going up with 4 keys and we are good to go. But yeah, the trick to being a witch is to go ahead and do it in such a way that it doesn't come true until like 40 minutes later, and then no one can blame you for it unless you open your big fat mouth.
And speaking of which, being the first person of getting that guess at number 7 in the chat, Daxamont is the winner of the GT Big Key guessing game, getting a whole whopping 22 points for the leaderboard. And doesn't look like anybody else got 7 as well, so no other additional points awarded for this version of our game.
Yep. And as chat just showed you there, you can go ahead and put in leaderboard to see where the leaderboard standings are for this league so far. Meanwhile, Frostbite is rolling through the gauntlet. It's called the gauntlet because it's hard. We swear it's difficult. These rooms are a combination of BMOS and Conveyor Belt and Stealthos and Zyzax and Ice and things that are just generally unpleasant. The enemy RNG, honestly, is one of the things that makes these rooms as hard as they are. Because every time you walk in here, you get a completely different room. You can't even trust that you're going to get something that remotely resembles what you got last time, and it's terrible. But as I said, these guys are great at the game. Frostbite making this look relatively easy, in spite of the fact that you have to whack every red Zyzax twice with only that Master Sword. Doesn't matter, still getting through it pretty quickly. And we are on to land mode 2.
Yeah, but as if the enemy movement RNG doesn't hurt enough, they got those treadmills in there to move them around a little bit more. Those red Stealthos, like, doing their own thing because they got a mind of their own, and you know, you could swing and swear you hit them, and next thing you know, they're on the other side of the room throwing a bone at you. But without so much as a second look, that was a nice one-cycle silver arrow fight on land mode 2 for Frostbite.
Yeah, land mode 2 existed of all of about 5 seconds, maybe. That's charitable, I feel like, calling it 5 seconds. And those worms might never choose to see the light of day ever again. I'll tell you what, if I popped out of my hole and I got a silver right to the face, it'd be like, next time I'm just going to stay down here. You can wait.
Yeah, we gonna camp out for a little bit. Frostbite continuing the trek through those last couple of rooms here in the top of Ganon's Tower to Torches 2, past what we kind of call some of the most satisfying rooms in Rando, the Wizrobe rooms. Samaria blocks make those so nice and make us wish we
I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, that was just a thing.
Yeah, with about 4 minutes left in the seed, Frostbite doesn't have too much time to reflect upon that item location, but there it is either way. Don't worry, that'll hopefully be my last pun of the day for those of you who are wishing that I'd just shut my gob already.
Oh, man.
So, Pulse Moldorm Chest Sword. What do you think? Yeah or nay?
Yeah, 20 rupees.
It doesn't count as a call if you're going with something that literally has a 1 in 9 chance of occurring, Spyweaver. Actually, hold on.
I mean, I'll take that one to the bank all day, so...
It's actually higher than a 1 in 8 chance, so yeah, you had about a 13% chance of getting that correct because you copped out and picked something common.
I mean, just because you let me cash in on that one, let's go. Frostbite nailing a first cycle triple there, second cycle double. Well, second cycle is a 0, third cycle is a double here.
Hitting every number once, 3, 0, 2, 1.
That sounds like a locker combination.
It sounds like someone messed up the blast-off count.
How does this work again? Pikapals, meanwhile, dropping on into GT, starting off over in the Hope Room. We'll pick up 2 chests here. Hopefully we can hope Pikapals decides to go left, even though we find that key. And yes, thankfully, Pikapals is heading off to the left.
All right, so we have a rare treat here. It's going to be 12 spins, or with a combination of double spins here, doing 2 spins worth, obviously. For this first phase, 12 spins for the second phase, which is where things get really hairy, honestly, with those fire bats. And then 1 spin apiece
You
for
could almost say they
phase.
get batty.
No, I couldn't, Spy. I could not say they got batty. You know why? Because I have decided to forego using 90s slang. That's why, Spy Weaver. But anyway.
Luckily, I'm not above that.
You're not above anything right now. Ganon giving us a really, really, really nice spot for that first portion. This one being a little less friendly, but Frostbite able to get just a boatload of spins off on that first cycle, and yeah, knocked it out there. So we are in the tantrum stage where we take out the corners of the room. And then with silvers, we are just going to still have 4 spins and 4 silvers, or probably, given the quality of these runners, more like 2 spins, 4 silvers, but you know.
Yep, with each sword doing 1 tier damage higher with a spin versus a slash, and Ganon needing that tier 3 damage to essentially hit him, a slash from the Master Sword will actually do nothing. It'll just kind of tink off him. You need to do a Master Sword spin to get that next tier damage to actually damage him, as Frostbite is showing us ever so gracefully here.
And with that, we have just 1 more arrow, and then a 1x3 bridge after some fanfare here that Frostbite will have to survive. Once that is done, you guys can get your GGs in chat.
Sword in the air, music playing, the curtains have fallen. Crossing the bridge, taking the win for Phendrana Drifters in this seed is Frostbite3030, official racetime.gg time of 1 hour, 20 minutes, and 40 seconds. Go on ahead and drop them GGs in chat.
And that is an insane time for a surprise ice rod in Green Pendant Eastern. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, this seed definitely had plenty of opportunity to be a lot ruder than it ended up being, and I guess just based on how everything pointed you, I guess, back towards Eastern, and I guess that mirror as well being locked inside GT helped as well. So it could have been a lot worse, combined with the fact that like we've said many a times, these are definitely top tier runners here, basically making quick work of an otherwise nasty seed.
Yeah, that's fair. I was more making reference to the quality of our runners, that they managed to get a green pendant seed done in an hour and 20 minutes. But yeah, to be fair, it was the only real big mistake you could have made, I feel like, is rolling into Meyer. Other than obviously going into TR without that ice rod, which honestly I don't know that I'd qualify that as a mistake. It was like
not at all.
It was a galaxy brain sized play for Frostbite. I would not call what Pikapals did a mistake by any stretch, because that's what Rando kind of beats into your head is go into TR if you can, because usually the ice rod is right there, and if it's not, something leading to the ice rod is right there, so just go ahead and get it done.
And speaking of which, we are joined here in the booth by Frostbite3030, our winner today. GG's, well played.
Hey, thanks, Spy. That was a fun race. You never feel great in any of these things, right? I didn't feel like my execution was all that great. I don't know where y'all live, but it's super cold around here today for the first time, and my hands were cold the whole race, and I just had a tough time between trying to blow on them and them somehow being clammy and sweaty yet cold at the same time. It wasn't the most ideal situation, but no, it was an interesting seed, and basically when I found the ice rod, I was pretty sure that I had won the race because I know most people would probably route Saha's closet first, if not even earlier in the seed, and have found the glove/mitts hiding in there and not gone into Eastern. So yeah, I feel like that was I think clearly the game-winning play. Because when I checked in, I saw Pika basically just fighting Armos about the time like I finished and with delay and whatnot. So yeah, I definitely don't feel I won because of execution. I feel like I won because of the way I routed the Eastern and Saha closet. Am I correct?
Yeah, you basically nailed that one. Exactly what happened. I mean, Pikapals and you did pretty much the same thing at the same time there.
Yeah.
Pikapals was not super early to grab that glove, but
Okay.
they went in, checked Saha's closet first, grabbed the mitts, and quite predictably, if you get the mitts first, I mean, I'll just leave Eastern as it is.
I would have done exactly the same thing. I mean, I was a little bit worried about the one item I left in Ice Palace, and obviously I was worried about Dark Cross because when I went down there, like I hit my hook shot out too early, and then I had the good rat that was coming towards me, but he escaped to me on the far right side of the room, and I was just like, I know where he is. I don't have boots. This is just going to be a pain in the butt. So I was just going to die on my sword if that ever had the item in it there. and then, of course, I'm thinking in my head, maybe you'll get the mirror, and you can just mirror from Pyramid and check Dark Cross. Well, obviously that was never going to happen. So, but no, this was a fun one. I felt like, like I said, I felt I played okay. I feel like the opening was pretty, like standard, if that makes sense. Like there wasn't a lot of, I guess it's sort of like how quickly do you go back and turn in that powder with the flute. It was very appealing. And then sort of, do you kill Armos or not the first time you were there? And no, someone like Megawatt and some of my other teammates and friends, we've been talking about this, and this is a specific situation that I think me and a couple other folks have decided that, like, if it's late game and I'm more than one item for go mode, and Eastern is specifically the green pendant, I'm always going to route Eastern Palace in first. And it has won me more than one race in tournaments by routing it that way and having it be an item. Plus, 2 green pendants in the hash. Come on, guys. Like, no, I'm kidding. But I was laughing. That was like the first comment I heard. One of you guys mentioned it on the restream.
That would have been Hammer.
Well, no, because he's talking about after he completed. But yeah, actually, before you guys even went live, I made a comment. I was like, 2 green pendants in the hash. You know what that means, right? And I was actually going to ask that. I was going to say, so did that hash, are you the kind of person that's just a little superstitious? Like, do you read into the hashes at all? Was that part of the reason?
I meme about it before races, but if you would have asked me when I was making the play, I couldn't have told you if the hashes were, like, from this game or from a different game that I played. So, like, I had no clue at the time. But it's like once you reach go mode, I start rethinking, because my brain, I can't just focus on what I'm doing. I got ADD, so I gotta like be replaying the whole seed in my head as I'm going through go mode, and then I thought back to what the hash was, and I started laughing because, like, it's a lot of times I wouldn't notice, but because it's like a 1v1 tournament race, like, I specifically read the hash and said it out loud and made sure I had the right seed and whatnot. So it was just funny and poetic. But no, this was happy to get the win. Super happy to go 2-0 tonight with Jet and taking out Swerve as well, and Swerve and Pika are both awesome runners, and I feel like we're really fortunate to have moved on to 12 points, and all I gotta say is, when are we doing this, Fear Agent? Let's go. Monday at midnight. When do you want to go? Hit me up, bro. Anyways, I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks for doing the calls. I'm definitely gonna watch it back, and I see Pika just popped in here. Wish him really good GGs, and everyone take care.
You too. Have a good night.
GG's Frostbite.
Thanks,
I will
everybody.
jump in quick as well, too. Pikapals, as just mentioned, crossing the finish line there in second place in the seed official race time.gg time of 1 hour, 26 minutes, 29 seconds. Get your GG's in chat as well. We are joined, like Frostbite said, by Pikapals here. GG's.
Hey, GG's.
Yeah, so in case you're curious what this boiled down to, essentially Frostbite made the play of going into Eastern first and then taking that green pendant to Saha's closet. So Frostbite ended up grabbing that ice rod before even grabbing the mitts, where obviously you were steered away from Eastern because, hello, I have the mitts. He was not and already had that ice rod. That's essentially what it ended up being. But other than that, you raced really, really well, especially with two swords just kind of hiding somewhere. I don't know. One in GT, one in Swamp, probably.
Yeah, somewhere, I'm sure. Both mirror locked somewhere, probably. Who knows?
Graveyard Ledge, K45, Checkerboard.
All those fun places. Throw one in Meyer, just for fun.
Always Meyer.
But yeah, I figured I was kind of hoping most of the seed that the first glove was flute locked, just because I got that flute really early. And then I decided I would just check Sahasrahla first instead of Eastern, because full clearing Eastern for no value seemed like a kind of bad way to lose a lead. So naturally, clearing Eastern was the correct play.
Welcome to Rando.
Yeah, and I don't know if you caught the tail end of, I was talking to Frostbite there, but that is definitely what made the difference. Frostbite actually dove into Eastern before even checking Sahasrahla's closet, so got that ice rod that went to the back and pulled those mitts. And it's like we've said, that's just the nature of Rando, of who's going to make the right play and where, unfortunately. But up until that point, essentially the two of you were really close and neck there.
Yeah, pretty much. You can right order most of the seed, but then you find the ice rod last, and then you lose.
Yeah, and that's one thing that can make Rando frustrating, is that, like, even in a situation, it was, and we were talking about it at the time, because obviously we didn't know what was on Green Pendant while Frostbite was going through Eastern. And I was just kind of sitting here musing to spy. Like, I mean, I would definitely do the closet first, even not knowing what was in the closet, because I mean, you've got 3 items that are going to take you 10 seconds, 4 items that are going to take you 4 minutes. I feel like you run through Sahasrahla's closet, and then you've got the mitts there, and then of course there's nothing in Eastern. Frostbite comes out, drops the green pendant on Sahasrahla, gives him the ice rod, and Rando just kind of told me to, this is your place, stay in your place. You don't know what I do.
Yeah. I was all prepared to go into Eastern too after Pod if I found the mirror in there, and then it just gave me a fire rod instead.
Yeah, which if anything throws you all the way to the other side of High Road.
Yep.
And that worked out.
Skull.
That worked out nicely too, because you ended up getting that. You had your boots, go back, take out that crystal, and it was moving really nicely. You guys both had like 5 crystals sub-hour. And then you start thinking, okay, where's that ice rod? And yeah, well, there you go.
Yep. And then you go dive T-Rock and find the book, and it's like, well, there are like one place I really don't want to check, and there's desert, so I guess I'll go there. So.
Right, and Turtle Rock doing its requisite requirement. Like, what have you learned for this version? If you're just missing an ice rod, go into Turtle Rock. It'll either have the ice rod or it'll have something else you need. And it did, because that mirror was sitting up on top of GT.
Yep. I was going into Turtle Rock to go find my mirror, and then it wasn't there, but a book was instead.
Right, which at that point, that doesn't even feel that bad, because you're sitting there like, okay, well, the book unlocks Ether Tablet. It also unlocks Desert, which is gonna be my next crystals. Let's go ahead and knock that out. Maybe I'll find the ice rod there. It'll be fine. Won't be a big deal. And nope, it was sitting on Green Pendant. Ugh.
Yep.
Yeah, and in that case, I was just kind of, we were kind of discussing back and forth as you both were going through Turtle Rock. It's like, okay, best of a worst case scenario, since we already know where things are, is going to be the book here. And unfortunately, it wasn't the mirror, because the mirror, of course, will throw you for a whole nother loop, opening up Swamp, opening up a whole bunch of other mirror checks. It was, let's just say it wasn't going to be good if the mirror ended up being there on Laser Bridge instead of the book.
Yeah, it would have been tricky. I'm not sure. I was still half thinking I was going into Eastern before Swamp anyway, but
It's just another one of those of, rando be rando, what do you do given the items and who makes the right plays? But, by no stretch of the imagination, I mean, was it done bad or anything either? It was well played, honestly, if you ask me, by both of you. It's just Frostbite ended up making the one play at the right time that gave him a little bit of the edge there. With that in mind, do you have any little bit of a sneak preview, I should say, for us for next week at all, Pika? Or have you guys not even discussed what your team's doing for the casual boots?
nope. We'll figure out what we're doing next week.
Sounds good.
Alrighty, so with that being said, I think we are pretty much good to go here, as we see two pretty low clear rates, all things considered. 143 from Frostbite, 139 from Pikapals. I believe that is all for me, so I have been Hammer Bro, and Spyweaver, my friend. I'm going to let you have the last word. See us on out for the night.
Yep, and if you can't get yourself another of the good old rando, like we said, this is only week 2 of Link to the Past to Randomizer League Season 3. Bright and early tomorrow at 10:10 a.m., we have a match between the spoilers represented by Dr. Marty O versus Major Mistakes Alex Hacks. That and plenty more coming your way. Keep your eyes on that schedule. It's between both our Invitational and our Open Leagues. There is a whole slew of matches, a plenty of rando coming your way to essentially get your fill in this league. The rest of this week, tomorrow and Sunday, it will be the same exact mode. Open, defeat Ganon, 7 crystals, with next week being our standard casual boots with a assured sword start. That all being said, once again, I'd like to give a huge shout out to our tracker, Bandman25, for clicking all the buttons behind the scene, keeping track of what items our runners have and keeping us in line, letting us know what is where and who has what, doing all the hard work. Not enough love goes out to the trackers doing what they do. Without them, our job would be a whole lot harder. That aside as well, be sure to give both of our runners, Frostbite3030 and Pikapals, a follow on their Twitch channels. Putting on, once again, another great show here this evening for you. Go ahead and give them some love. Catch them when they're practicing or just running some seeds for some fun. And aside from that, thanks to all of the people over at Speed Gaming hosting us and having us and allowing us to put on this match. It has been a good one. It has been a pleasure here bringing this match to you guys. I'm Spyweaver, and we'll catch you on the next seed.